presentation is to show what Drupal can do right out of the box with Contrib with no custom code. So essentially, I had a client that was using Word docs, Excel spreadsheets, and putting these things up to Dropbox, and that was how they were maintaining a lot of their business workflow. So at one time, they lost some files off of Dropbox, and they said, can you go ahead and create a file repository? And that's what we did. But first, it started out as a brochure website, and I want to talk about what they are and what they do. So,
can you put your microphone a little closer so we can hear you better? Yeah, bring that mic up, we can hear you a little easier.
Is it on?
Adjust the stand a little bit. Adjust the stand.
How's that? It may not even be on.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that better? That better? Yeah. Okay. Sorry about that. Okay, so Rapid Response Management is a company that brokers spill response all over the country. They've got clients like Costco, Home Depot, other Fortune 500 companies that are real concerned about complying with EPA regulations. So if something happens on one of their properties, or maybe even a vehicle that's going down the road somewhere, they want to go ahead and make sure that this gets cleaned up as fast as possible. So this is kind of what the site looked like when we first built it. It really wasn't much, just a brochure site. Then, like I said, about a year later, they asked if they put files online that the clients could view and review. And I said, yeah, that's no problem. So we created a content type with file fields, set the directory to private, used content access, multi-file upload, and of course, views. So essentially, when they did that, created a node. When they loaded up files, it looked like what you see on the screen there. Then last year, they decided that they wanted to scrap this process where they open up a Word document and have to totally enter all the data in again, one time, because there's a way we can automate some of this stuff that gets reused. So we looked at the workflow, and this is a sample document of what they were using. They would create this document, it's a Word doc, and then they would fax it out or email it to one of their clients as an authorization to go ahead and proceed with work. So the spill report on the right that you see, and the previous document I showed were the two main documents that they used, but they also had a lot of other documents that their, say a subcontractor they had out cleaning up a spill would send them something via fax. Then they'd have to manipulate it, save it as a PDF, load it up to Dropbox. So what we did was decided that we would create nodes that created the look of their forms and then be able to save them as a PDF and then upload it to the file repository. So we used Display Suite to create the form, and I don't know how many people have used Display Suite, so what Display Suite can do is create a layout in the content area that is more than just a straight one div wide, and it does this without writing any custom code. So you can get layouts in Display Suite, and you can get, there's a module called Display Suite Extra Layouts, and at the upper right there is a copy of the layout that we use to create the next form that I'm going to show. And then the image to the left there's a little box there, and you can circle that, or where it's circled, and you can use Display Suite to use an expert mode, which will overwrite the default Drupal markup. So it becomes a little simpler markup, and this was the form we ended up creating. So in the previous slide, you saw that there was these other layouts. So there was a header layout, above left, above right, middle, below left, below right, and then footer. So this is kind of a sample of what the markup, how the markup will change when you use expert mode in Display Suite. Instead of having all the standard Drupal default field label, field items, field, this and that, it became simply that the main div was called outwrap. That's what I named it. Then I had two spans in there, L, bold, and item. And what this did, the outwrap essentially created the outline of each, what looks like a cell. So each div had an outline, and the spans were inside. There was a reason I used spans rather than the divs, made it easier to style. And we weren't concerned about any semantic markup because everything that is here is internal to the site and it's not public. So we're really not concerned with any research because the file repository was private. So we used the module PDF using MPDF to generate PDF documents. So this kind of shows you how the PDF document what the fields are, where the little checkboxes are, what you have to do. So I'm having a hard time seeing it on my screen. But you also have a custom CSS file. And when you go to your Display Suite, you can either choose your full content and your PDF content. So there's a separate style sheet for the PDF. Now, when we started creating these forms, one of the ways we wanted to automate the process was that they get a call, say Costco in some little town in Missouri or someplace had a spill and they had to have it cleaned up. Well, we wanted to create it so all they had to do was go to an entity reference field, select Costco, and it filled out the name, the address, and a whole lot of fields. Then we used also, and I'll show it later, then there's another reference field called ER vendors, which they could then use another drop down and choose the vendor that was closest to that site so that they could get a response team there in less than 2 hours, which is their goal. So we also created a proximity filter. So they can open the proximity filter and use that to decide which vendor is closest. Now, they don't really have to use it because they could just use the drop down and go to the closest zip code, and they could choose the people that way. All right, so we had, when we started doing the research, we had 2,000 Costco stores, 5,000 AutoZones, O'Reilly's, Kohl's. We had a number of clients that were the main clients. And my first iteration was that I loaded the database up by feeds and created one content type. The problem with that was when we opened it up, it took 1.5 minutes to load because I had this huge number of nodes loading for all these different companies. So essentially I separated it out, and so they could click on Costco, or they could click on just a client that might be new or wasn't part of the 4 million or 6 million people. So when we did the mapping, I've got this one area circled. When we got the database for these stores, and I can tell you can get that stuff online at a place called, I believe it's Ag Data, and we paid for the databases, downloaded them, and it was basically in the CSV format. So we took the spreadsheet, we had to massage the data a little bit. They had stuff in there that we didn't want, fields that we didn't want, and then we had to map some of the fields differently. Well, where I've got the box circled, you can see that the source on the left says client site, and that was one of the fields. But in their forms, they had this named 2 or 3 different ways. Now in Drupal, on the same form or the same node, you can't have that field occur twice. So if you wanted to show the same data there, you have to map it to another field with a different name, even though it might actually say the same thing. So that's why you can see on the left here, I have client sites 3 times, and it maps to the title of the node, it maps to spill site name, and Costco. This one here says Costco site name. To the right is just a sample of the content area of the node, what it looks like if they were actually, oops, excuse me. Yeah, so that's where the little box up in the upper right just kind of tells you what's happened there. There are some geo fields in there. And then the lower area has a couple of boxes here. The fields down below are hidden fields. Now these fields are hidden on the node, but they can be referenced elsewhere. So just because a field is hidden doesn't mean it can't be referenced. And then the box there says this is a display suite field. That's a field that is generated with tokens. In other words, what happened is we got this database in, and the city, the state, the zip, the address were all separate cells in the spreadsheet. So what I did was created one field which only displays, which uses tokens and to create those as one field in line. Okay, the way we got these fields into the form obviously is entity reference. So I had 2 entity reference fields on the authorization form, and you can see there's quite a number of fields here. The 2 circle boxes are the entity reference. One's for the site, and the other is for the vendor. So the magic starts when you use entity reference autofill. When you do the autofill, hold on a second. When you do the autofill field, use entity reference autofill, what will happen is you get this area here. Let me move this one here. You get this area here that says authorize additional behaviors, and if you check that entity reference autofill, then you can choose the fields from entity reference that you want to autofill in your form. So basically what happens is then below you choose the node, so down at the bottom it says target bundle, and that says Costco sites here. So if I'm trying to do one to send out an authorization to Costco, then what you do is click the button on the drop down, which I'll show in the demo, and it auto-populates for that store in the form, and they don't have to type it in. Then they go over and they also then choose this other spot, which is on the right-hand side, is the sub-reference, entity reference. And then these other fields are the fields we want to autofill, the ones that are checked, and that automatically fills that part of the form. So one thing I found when I was doing this was that once I create the authorization form, I can also then take and create a reference that references the first form, the fields in the first form, and autofill into their spill report, which they have to then send to the vendor, or to their client. So essentially, I've got this field that we call auth reference, and it referenced all these fields that are checked. And when they start the spill report, they just click the job that has that authorization that autofilled all those fields. It saved them a whole lot of time. Now we talked about that we created a file repository and we had a job file content. Now when we started the job file content, the first time we had only 2 fields. We had one that was just called job information, which they could upload any PDF or text file or whatever. We had photos. But as we got into more automation, we figured out we needed to have more fields and make this more functional. So if you look here, there's a whole lot of fields here. They've got spill report, job invoice, client invoice, authorization, and then there's some Boolean fields, which are on-off fields, which work with conditional fields, and views to do some other functionality that we wanted. Now, one of before we started this additional autofilling, and we were just uploading to the 2 fields, my client was, say they had a job, they would save the file as authorization to respond, and they had multiple file authorizations. Well, what happens in Drupal if you're not using file field path is, if you look there's authorization to respond, parentheses 1, parentheses 2, parentheses 3, which is fine. On the nodes, Drupal knows that authorization 3 goes to, job 345. It knows that 5 goes to job 268 or whatever. But in the file repository, everything was in one huge lump. So that's what you didn't know. If you were trying to download this to your, to a place to save it or back it up, you couldn't tell which authorization went to which job. So that's where file field paths comes in. So if you look to the left, the lower left block, it lists and stores Home Depot / and that's a purchase order number, and then but down below there's JetBlue / something. Well, using auto entity label, you use that, and with the token module and file field paths, then you can use the tokens then to create these custom paths so that everything goes into these folders. So now, if I wanted to download one of these folders, I know everything's in there because we use file field paths, which also needs file field sources as a dependent module. So you look here, auto entity label then, excuse me, then would name the job based on, you can kind of see what is rapid response management, Costco number, what such and such purchase order number. So the file field path setup, this kind of shows you what you have to do, and the third box down shows you the tokens that you need to create the file name, and then the path is the second box down. And this is all created automatically. So we've got a job file input form, and we're using field permission to limit who can see what on the input forms. I haven't gotten to it yet, but with rules and automation, we were able to create an authorization form. When that form creates a spill report, which is automatically auto-filled with certain fields. It creates then the job file node. Well, we also then would permission a field guy to be able to upload the files. That saved these people from having to take these faxes and things that came in and having to repurpose them. And they were spending hours doing this kind of stuff. So now we made a requirement that the subcontractors had to upload the files via email, or via the website, excuse me. So that just saved a ton of time. So on the left is a client invoice field. And you can see down at the bottom, this is using field permissions. It's a custom permission that the different folks can see the client invoice. Okay? But the vendor can't see it. Over on the right, you see that the folks that are uploading the file, okay, this would be for the job notes field. The client can't see that field, but the subcontractor can. So when the field, if someone's logged in as a say Costco comes in, they can only see something that is appropriate for them to see. They don't see the invoice that the subcontractor sends. They see the invoice that these people send to them. So the one on the left is what is seen by the administrator. This is we have now separated out a lot of these things into totally separate fields. You can see this whole list here to the left, and in the photos. And on the right, this is what the Costco rep would see. So they get to see pertinent information, they get the report, they get an invoice, and there's a couple other fields in there. Plus they get to see the photos to confirm that what the work they wanted done does get done. So these are the modules. Permission modules we used was ACL, content access, and field permissions. Content access allows you to, and I don't know how many people, how many new people or whatever here, but content access allows you to create role-based access. So if you had the role vendor, you would have one access. We also have roles that are vendor and then the name of the vendor, which means they can only see what theirs is. We have a role for the administrator and then the client himself. And then each store has their own people that were given access to see what happens at their location. Display modules we use was Display Suite Extra Layouts, Views. To generate PDFs, I use PDF using MPDF, which is nice. It only creates a PDF of the content, not the whole page. So I'll show you how we generate a PDF. The file storage path modules, file field paths, file field sources, and auto entity label. Well, I put auto entity label on there because that creates the label, and then the token, and from that label will go into the file field paths. So that name's a path, so we know that this name here matches the name in the folder. For entity reference, we used entity reference, entity tokens, entity reference autofill, and entity connect, which I will go over when I do the demo. To upload the database, feeds and feeds tamper, and then additional functionality was multi-upload file field, multi-upload image field, rules, conditional rules, rules bonus pack, geofield, geolocation proximity filter, better exposed filters, field collection, field group, and views bulk operations. So let me go to the website. Okay, when, and this is me logged in, this isn't a customer or a vendor. My client would see much of the same things if they were logging in, but minus a few things that I don't want them to be able to change. So I've created a shortcut bar for them here that you could see. So I've got authorized client, AutoZone, Costco, Home Depot, Kohl's, O'Reilly's, PetSmart. Then we have a proximity filter and a user check. I created the user check because one time they tried to create a user, apparently didn't have validation in there to, if they tried to create a user with the same name. So I kind of disabused them of that after this came up, but they had one user named Dan and then tried to create another user named Dan, and I said, no, you got to use first name, last name, you know, that kind of stuff. So that did throw an error. So I'm going to go ahead here and click Authorize Client. And this is on their live site, so we've got some fake stuff in here. So I've got, can you see that by the way? Is it up there? The form? Okay, so this is the form that we created. I'm using, just as an aside, I'm using Add Minimal as the administration theme, and use Display Suite to kind of make this a two-column layout. So you see right here at the top I've got main header, and that what that does is that will be part of the thing that auto labels the node and then creates the file fields. So I'm going to click the reference field here, and I'm just going to go down. I've got a fake thing called FatBobs 1, 2, 3. Okay, so to do that, you can look down here below to the site address, the street, city. So all this stuff is here. The first call date defaults to now. And then over here, there's an estimated, on the right hand at the bottom, there's an estimated ER arrival time. That auto defaults to 2 hours, which is their goal to always have somebody there within 2 hours. In reality, that is one of the reasons these guys have been so successful, because they have vendors all over the country. I mean, when I say all over the country, I mean all 50 states. And when they get an ER call, they immediately figure out who is the best company to get there, and they get somebody dispatched. Their phone number autofills here on the right at the bottom, authorized by. These are people that work in the company, so I create, they can select that. And the first time I did that, I had that as a key pair, and I found out, this is before we redid the site, that once you create a key pair and you have content created, you can't add anybody. So if they had another employee, they couldn't add somebody. So that became a term reference field. Authorizing company, I'm just going to make that me. So they get a call in, and they have certain things that they still have to input. And the first thing they have to do is they have to get the caller name. So put in a caller name. These are all just nonsense. And a phone for that. All right, so then they have to do a PO number. Now, up at the very top, you can see there's a box check that says 3E dispatch client. 70% of their business comes from this company called 3E. 3E does, what do you call it? Hazardous communications for companies. They subcontract to make sure material safety data sheets, everybody's paperwork's up to date. So they kind of broker this on through. I'm going to uncheck that because the rule we have created, we'll send them an email, and I don't want to send her an email saying this job is created. So the PO number can be anything. Let me do it. This EPA ID number is something that is unique to every site in the country. This particular address has a unique EPA ID number. I don't necessarily know what it is. Sometimes you have to call. A couple of these databases we have them in, some of them we don't. Vendor upload. I've got a little note there that says underneath it, do not enter data if it doesn't autofill. So I'm just going to go pick somebody. I'm not going to make it anything that's what I want to do is show that this field, that one field should actually auto-populate now. So vendor upload then automatically filled because we've got 3 vendors that are preferred vendors that when you select them, it will fill them in and send. What happens is the rule will then send them an email to the office saying, okay, you're now authorized, whoever their people are with permission, you're now authorized to upload or to download or to view this file folder. So attention. I'll just create a name and I'm going to give him one of my emails. Hopefully we won't get an error. There's other fields here, ER scope, I could just say it's a fuel spill. And there's a couple things that autofill, 2 responders, 1 truck, authorized equipment, I might say vacuum, something like, maybe they've got to vacuum up some hydraulic oil or something. So down here, these fields are already filled out. This is, comes in. There's also a couple of fields here at the bottom that are right down here that are hidden on the actual node when it's created. But what happens is then when we authorize them on the spill report, they will autofill on the spill report. So I'm going to save this. So that's what happens. It will create this node here that looks like this. Okay. Now you can see the message. I've still got messages live. So it says created a new alias, created new, this job file, which is automatically gets the same number, 1, 2, this 1, 2, 3 with the purchase order, and we append JF on the back of it. So when they go into the file, into the content area, they can separate out so that the job would say Fat Bob's 123.111.999. That's the authorization. It has JF after it. That's the job file. If it has SR after it, it has the spill report. So no user has email, so that means it's created new alias for that user. Okay, and so the user, Greg Fine, has been created an email, this email that I had. He's got this password. Users with the role of first call can now upload files, and the authorization to respond has been created. So now we can go into the content. Well, before we do that, I'm going to go ahead and generate the PDF. So the PDF, PDF using MPDF, we'll put this little tab up here. This tab over here is the access control. So I'm going to go ahead and generate the PDF. So I'm going to save it. Let me save it to my desktop. So I'm going to open it. So there you can see we generated the PDF. They can take this PDF now, email it, and it's paginated, and it looks pretty much just like the note. So so I go to content. You see now that we've automatically not just created the authorization form, we've created the job file and the spill report. So if I open up the job file folder, there's nothing there, obviously. We haven't uploaded. Now, what they will do now is they would upload that authorization form to the job folder. The spill report has some fields filled out, but what you have to do to come in here, you click edit, it basically creates it, but we haven't filled anything out yet. So I can go in here to this auth reference form, go to FactBobs 123, do that. I'm going to save it. And that's the start of it. Now they've got a lot of other fields here in this blank area that they will fill out. What they do is they'll be getting calls during the day. They dispatch these people. They'll get a call an hour later. I've got this, or I've got that. So down here at the bottom, we've got call logs. So they have a call log that's a multi. They may have 10 calls listed down here. There's some field grouping going on here. Daily time on site, blah, blah, blah. There's a whole lot of things going on here. So also we can generate that PDF. So I can generate it. I'm not going to actually save it, but it would go into the file folder in the same job file that the authorization went in. Okay, so let me go to the job file folder again. All right, so if I go to edit this, I've got this form here. I just want to explain a couple of things we've got here, and then I'm going to show the rules that make this happen. But we do have a conditional field. So it turns out that sometimes they don't remove waste from the site. They may get out there and find out that it's not something's hazardous enough that they have to, the EPA says they have to take it off site. So if I check that out, then the box below it's going to disappear, so it doesn't show on there. So we've got some conditional fields here. If certain things happen and certain things get checked, something might disappear or might appear. So it just depends on what's happening. So if I want to add a new file, I can choose this file, go to my desktop. Sorry about that. Got the wrong spot. So I'll upload that. That's there. Now it's available for viewing. So if I go save this node, that shows up as being the file that's already on the site. Down below, depending on who logs in, it will show if a Costco person logs in, all they see is Costco jobs. And so just to demonstrate that, I'll go to Kohl's here for a minute. That's what someone from Kohl's would see. They could click on it. They said, yeah, okay, we've been to this job. We can see what happened. Obviously, they didn't upload any photos, but you can see that the information's there. So if you want to see, this would show, say, the database for all the, I'm going to choose Costco again. So this is the database that we uploaded with feeds, so all the Costco sites are there. I didn't talk about the proximity filter, but if I come in here and I've got proximity, and then it defaults to within 120 miles, we consider that 2 hours to delivery. By the way, how's the time? Good? Yeah. Okay, so basically, if I want to come in here and I want to put in it pops up a list of vendors they can choose from to see who they want to use to dispatch. There's also a weather link on their spill report. They do put the weather at the site so they can tell whether it's raining, which may in a spill be something that's critical. All right, now I'm going to just go and show the rules. There's several rules, but there's really just a couple of main ones. I'm going to do one that's disabled, but it's pretty much the same. So, and you may not be able to actually read this, but essentially what we did was came in here, created a new entity. Okay, well, let's go up to the top. So the first event is after saving the content of type authorization, then I'm going to create a new entity. So that entity is going to be the job file. Then we're going to save it. Then we're going to create the other entity, which is the spill report. We're going to save that entity. And we're going to fetch this entity by property. So, and the property is that in the authorization form we had the project manager and the project manager email. So when I pull that entity, it finds out if that person exists. Okay, so if he exists, you compare it, there's a comparison here goes, we're going to grant him access, we're going to show the message on the site, then we're going to send him an email telling him he can upload. Okay? Else. Well, and I'm not sure exactly the order I got here, but so anyway, so we're going to create the password text here, and that's if he doesn't exist. So we're going to create a new password. I do some string manipulation here. Create a new entity, which is user. So we create the new user, we save them, set a data value, which is temporary ID. Then I do string manipulation. I reverse the text string just so it's not completely easy for someone to hack it right away, which I don't think would ever happen. But, so we set the password. We add a new user role vendor. We unblock them. We grant them access. We show a message on the site. Then we send them an email. So then there's another conditional. Okay, so this conditional is if data compare node field 3 dispatch. Well, that was the little checkbox I had at the top. So if that box is unchecked, it won't send these people an email. If it's checked, it sends them an email. The next conditional is a text comparison for, it says vendor vendor upload matching first call. That was the field that I said when you put in the vendor, if it auto-populated, if it didn't auto-populate, you leave it blank. Because there's really only 3 of them right now that have that permission. So this will grant them access as a role of vendor and a role of first call, displays a message, sends them an email, grants them access, and so on. So basically that's what happens all the way down here. And Then let's see what's the bottom one. Yeah, that's another vendor. So essentially, with no custom code on the site, created a workflow that saved these people hundreds of dollars in time, thousands actually in time, enabled them to have a file repository that they can easily search and download all these files and know, and everything's put in because of file field paths, auto entity label, and so on. Everything's named in a way that it's organized on the site. They're auto-permissioning people and getting their people dispatched. They can be out on the road. One time they were coming back from a UT football game, driving somewhere in Bristol, Tennessee or something, got a call. He pulled over to the side of the road with his tablet, put the information in, sent an email and dispatched people on the road, something they couldn't do before when they were running everything through Excel spreadsheets and Word docs. So that's pretty much it. Appreciate y'all coming.